You've been told to have faith, to believe, to trust. But if faith were just simply a belief, then why do so many people believe, but nothing changes? Why do you say you believe, but also still doubt? Why do you want something, but keep repeating the same patterns? Here's the truth most people miss. Faith is not belief. Faith is a system. It is a discipline. And whether you understand it or not, it is already creating your reality. Hello and welcome to the show. My name is Justin Gates. Joining me is Michael Perry. Somewhere?
Hey, fam.
And you're listening to the new Ashla Podcast. Hello and welcome to the new Ashla Podcast. We're so happy you joined us today. Today we're going to be talking about faith and how faith actually, Mike, helps create the world around us, right?
Yeah. I think even now as we talk about faith, it's not going to be the first thing that pops in people's minds on what faith really is. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, what we're going to dive into today is really powerful to wrap your head around because we all practice faith, atheist or not.
Yeah, for better or for worse, we do, right? And a lot of people automatically go to some particular religious system. But that's not what faith is. You have faith in that, right? But that's not what faith is. Faith is a discipline. It's a spiritual discipline. And in some ways, a psychological discipline too, right? It's not a belief or blind optimism. Let's get that out of the way right now. It's really a process that moves stuff from the subconscious into creation. Not through language alone, but through that impression, right?
I mean, we all have beliefs. The best way I can summarize this is you think about how you know the rain comes about. You believe that it evaporates, it goes into the sky, it falls down. This is something you don't think about. This is just something you intuitively know. It is something that you learned at some point and it became a part of your belief system. And I'm not saying that is not the truth. That is how rain happens.
Right.
But these beliefs, this faith we have in how things unfold, how the world works, how we fit into all of it, all runs on faith.
Because what is repeated and what is constantly felt and reinforced becomes accepted, right? And once that's accepted, it becomes a directive, really. And the whole system around it, the rest of our system begins to organize around that, right? What we call the light does not respond to this surface intention. Our minds, our nervous systems do not respond to just surface intention. All of these things respond to alignment, right? Responds to what is consistent within us, what you hold to be true, what you reinforce emotionally, what you embody through your behavior. That is what it reflects, right?
No, you said it perfectly there. And this phrase you said at the beginning of this, for better or for worse. Because when it comes down to it, often our faith is in not the best places. You know, we have faith we're going to fail. We have faith that you're never going to find a partner. You have faith that you're a fuck up of a human being. These things, and this isn't something you're constantly telling yourself, but there is an agreement you made with yourself at some point that now dictates your inner narrative. The experiences you go through, the things you look for in the world will all be things that reinforce your faith.
Yeah. And here's where we start to separate faith from the surface beliefs and maybe surface hopes and optimism and stuff. Faith is not what you claim. It is what has been impressed so deeply for so long that it feels normal, right? It feels obvious. It feels like reality. And once it reaches that level, everything will move with it. Your perception will shift. Your behavior aligns with that, for better or for worse. You begin to act in ways that match what has already been accepted within you, those agreements, as you said. This is why I say faith creates. Not because you hope something happens, wish it, want it, do it, right?
Yeah.
But because you have aligned yourself with it to the point that it's already true within you. And the point of today's show is how do we turn that into a power that we can control, right? It's already happening. Let's turn the dials and learn how to control that so that we can build things around us and within us that we truly want. Because what becomes true within you will always take form around you.
As above, so below. It's one of
As
my
above,
favorite laws.
as above, so below. So belief kind of operates on the surface of things. Beliefs are these things that come and go, right? They don't really ingrain too deeply until we start to create habits around them. Well, we on this show we like to take habits and turn the habits into disciplines, right? Because habits happen automatically, but if we can turn things into disciplines, then we can control what we are accepting, what we are agreeing to, what we are allowing, and how we're acting, because it's something that we can adopt and something we can question. And beliefs do this. Beliefs will change, and a lot of times depending on the circumstances, right? Whichever way the wind's blowing, our beliefs will change. This is why belief, just kind of this surface belief, is unstable. So Michael, you can say that you believe something, but also at the same time still doubt it in the moment something hard comes, right? Some pressure shows up, stressors hit you. You can affirm something in here while feeling it oppositely.
Yeah.
Not much alignment there, right?
Yeah, I think back to like a lot of the struggles, again, always wanting to be an entrepreneur. There was always this cognitive of like, I believe I can do it. I know I can do it. I'm envisioning it. I'm
I
doing
think
the
I can. I think I
affirmations.
can. I think I can.
But that was not working with all the parts of me, especially that unconscious mind. Because even though I kept telling myself, I believe I can start a business, I believe that I can do anything, my mind in the background's like, no, you can't. I don't think you're capable of any of this. I don't think you have the strength. You're going to fail. And sure as hell, that belief is what kept me stuck.
Right. So my question is, if we just operate on these surface beliefs, these surface level beliefs, these very fragile and frail and surface things, right? When we do that, does our system follow the belief, or does our system follow what is consistent?
It's
With
always
that?
what is consistent. It is always
Yeah.
what is consistent. One of my biggest ways that you can tell if something is a belief or an aspiration is ask yourself, when you look at this belief and you wonder, is this true or not? Ask yourself, what are your actions telling you?
Hmm.
Because the truth of your beliefs lie in your actions and not in your thoughts.
Right.
The consistency will be in your actions, not in your thoughts.
And this is why repetition matters. This is why we say develop disciplines around the things that you want, right? The things that you need. You must take charge of these things. Not because repetition creates something on its own, but because it moves an idea from thought, it takes thought, feeling, into acceptance, into new habits and new ways of learning, especially when emotions involved, because that accelerates the process, right? Over time, what we repeat becomes familiar, as we said. So why not take control of the wheel, right? Why not, Michael, say, okay, if this stuff happens through repetition, if I create a discipline around this, wouldn't it be better for me to just start inputting the information into me that I want to have in there to grow the crops that I want to eat later, not the weeds and the whatever?
Yeah. I mean, I think an important thing to think about too while you're doing this. Right now, you are growing a crop. You are growing this little tree and starting to make this new forest within you.
Mm-hmm.
You still have a really big forest you've been feeding for decades. Don't compare of I'm just going to grow this tree and now this will go away. Consistency. It is
Mm-hmm.
constantly watering it. That way it can build its own foundation. It can start taking root and really creating that shade on your soul. I think one important question for you, Justin, is let's kind of narrow this down. How would you define a belief?
A belief is something we hear or we read, but it's just there, right? This goes back to the idea of insight without integration. Belief, think of it this way. Belief is something that we see, learn, experience, feel, but we haven't accepted it, we haven't agreed to it inside, we haven't integrated it into our being, right? That's what faith is. Faith is not something that's intellectual. A belief is intellectual, for the most part, right? Because even if we feel it, we turn it over to the mind and say, "What is this thing? Oh, look at this book. Oh, there's all these teachings and all these things," right? But beliefs are fragile. They move with the wind, right? They blow away completely, especially when things get hard. But faith, oh man, faith is hard. It's concrete. It's inside. It's what we build our house on, right? It's what we build our inner temples on. This is not intellectual. It's something that's aligned with and embedded in deep in us. And so when a belief becomes faith, and it can transform into faith, right? If it's been impressed deeply enough, it stops being something that we think about. We just think, right? Becomes something that we operate from. Again, becomes that foundational piece that we build things from. It shapes the perception, and it starts to be an automatic thing, as we talked about in other shows. If we practice these disciplines long enough, right, they become automatic in the system that we have. It will influence our decisions and our behaviors and our thoughts without effort. Faith feels obvious, not something we choose. So a belief would be something I choose. Faith is something that feels obvious. Does that make sense?
I'm glad you differentiated that, because that really does tie into the more important question of how does this tie into faith? Because you're absolutely right. A belief can change with the wind. You can have a change in opinion like that the minute you get counter evidence.
Yes.
But when it comes to faith, those are the things that take true paradigm shifts within our soul to have pivot. It takes true repetitious change for us to see the world through this new lens.
Don't tell me who you are. Show me who you are, right? Don't tell me, show me. And that's really what faith is. And faith is one of the agreements of our teachings, right? We have 12 agreements, and faith is one of them. It's alignment. It's alignment with if you believe something long enough and you build disciplines around it and you practice, it becomes faith over time, right? Because what has been accepted within you becomes what you're aligned with. Now, I know that sounds like a very obvious statement, but most of this stuff is very simple, is it not? Right? We just overcomplicate it with overthinking and identifying with and all this other stuff we talk about. That's what makes it complex. So psychologically, and you can run with this, but really, I'm just saying, when a belief moves into when it moves into not what we identify with, but part of our actual identity, it no longer requires any kind of reinforcement, right?
No. I mean, that transition in itself, enough repetition will ingrain any belief into that faith we're talking about. Neuroplasticity is an amazing thing, and it can be something that you can utilize to better your life, or it's something that can destroy your life. Repeated thoughts, emotions, and behaviors strengthen these pathways. The more you go through situations that are disempowering, the more you go through situations that reinforce these negative biases you have against yourself or the world around you, the more it's going to be ingrained in your soul as fact instead of something that is malleable and changeable.
Right.
You become rigid in being able to confront these understandings of the world. Like it's so, God, just trying to contextualize it into words.
It's difficult.
It is our perspective of how the world is around us. This, without wiggle room. It is a true, deep-seated understanding that we think we have on how things operate, without, like the water evaporating. That is something that is a deep-seated understanding.
Can it change?
Yes, but not quickly. Again, affirmations. I'm sure there's plenty of listeners out there right now that are like, I've tried the affirmations. Yeah. I've tried the self-talk, and it's not working.
There's a show we did more recently within the last few months, why affirmations don't work, or something like that. They do work, but you have to listen to the show to see why we said that, because that's literally a whole other show on its own. But they don't work under the wish it, want it, do it mindset, right? You have to align with lots of other parts of yourself. But this is why faith is powerful, and it can work against us and work with us, right? But we cannot turn a blind eye to how powerful this ingrainment is, because once something is impressed to that depth, it no longer requires our conscious attention to maintain it. Right. So,
ooh, that is so well said.
Right. Because you can't, like, eventually it disappears in the background and it starts to maintain you. So, faith is good, but faith can be detrimental to us if we're not careful. If we're not really careful in what we are, right, what we are putting in. So, and your internal, look, if your internal state is scattered, your experience will reflect that. If it's conflicted, your path feels divided and you feel disconnected from people and everything, right? But when what you hold becomes consistent, alignment happens naturally. That is just a natural part of this universe. It flows with alignment. And from that alignment, new movement begins. This is why faith creates, because it's not effort, Michael. Get rid of the effort and think of it like orientation, right? You are just simply moving yourself into alignment versus forcing yourself into everything, right? This is why when I teach meditation, I don't tell people, force yourself to breathe this way, force yourself to sit this way, force yourself to think this way or not think this way or whatever, right? I just say what? Get settled. Settle into your body, settle into your breathing, because you may be in a much different place than I am, and you probably are. All of us are in different spots, right? Especially depending on what happened 2 hours before the class or 2 weeks ago, or I'm worried about something 2 months from now, right? So it's all about orientation. It's about aligning with and getting our system to settle together. Everything all together all the time. So the subconscious accepts everything, does it not? It accepts before it starts to create, right?
Every time. I mean, the thing with the subconscious is it does not know good from bad, right from wrong, but what it does know is what it believes.
Mm-hmm.
And when 95% of our thoughts come from a place that we have no control over when it comes to in the moment power,
right?
It's a lot to really process. I mean, just sit with that for a second.
Right.
Because when we have a deep-seated acceptance of something about ourselves, especially something that is demoralizing or is self-destructive, I'm a bad person, I will never succeed, I am unattractive, these things we embody in our souls will carry into everything into our lives. And our brains, once it fixes on an idea, will search for the evidence everywhere. You will always be drawn to what your faith tells you and not what you want to believe outside of that.
It does not debate or evaluate in the way that this mind does, the conscious mind, right? It just accepts whatever Michael says, even when he's talking to somebody else. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, because and once something is accepted at the level you're talking about, the rest of us start to organize around it. Our thoughts will reflect it. Our behavior will align with it. Our perception will filter for it, looking for it, right? Creating evidence and all this stuff that doesn't even exist, right? You'll start to notice what supports it, but you will not see what does not support it, right? Your belief. This is why desire alone does not create change in us. You can want something consciously all you want, but if you still expect it not to work, you will hesitate, you'll delay, or you'll avoid all the things necessary to create what you're actually needing or wanting, right? Because the system does not move with what you want. Wish it, want it, do it. Doesn't work that way. It moves with what you have accepted, with what you resonate with. And until all that changes, the outcome will stay the same.
Preach it.
It will. It will stay the same. There's an axiom that I want to tie into this. The highest virtue is to act without a sense of self. And I know we used this on the last show, but this one also kind of fits here too, because the conscious self is where the conscious self right here is where our effort lives, right? This is where our intent is. This is where the wish it, want to do it is. It's where we try to control and direct and force outcomes. But the question I have for you is, does real creation originate from our effort and direction and forcing and all that stuff?
Ironically, I feel a lot of the faith we have comes from what happens when we do. We start off as these innocent kids trying to explore the world, experience things. We have that slightly narcissistic tendency of, I am the main character in this story. And then we slip, we fall, we end up doing something that embarrasses us. And that in that moment, a belief is wired, and it slowly becomes our faith, where I am an embarrassment. I'm going to get hurt if I try to climb anything. And it slowly starts to shape our reality, our decisions, our choices.
That's why we must employ responsibility here for this work. with all the work, but specifically today, responsibility at this level is taking responsibility for everything, not just the stuff on the surface, everything inside too. It's about ownership of what has been accepted within us, the things we agreed to, without even knowing we agreed to them. They're still our responsibility, right? Because we have to admit, we have to surrender to the truth that what has been repeated, what has been felt, what has been reinforced has shaped our current present selves, our current state, right? And once we become aware of that, whose job is it to change that, Michael?
It's ours.
It's ours, right? This is where agency, where sovereignty, where we start to take back management, power over ourselves. You stop seeing the patterns as something happening to you and beginning recognizing them as something operating through you or around you, right? Responsibility is alignment.
Well, and I think the important note on responsibility as alignment is you are always in alignment. You're in alignment with whatever it is you believe. And so there's this concept in psychology called expectancy theory, and it's that when we expect things to go a certain way, you're going to go into a job interview and you expect the job to go bad. You go to talk to a girl and you expect to be rejected or seen as a creep.
Mm-hmm.
You will begin putting the effort and what's the word I'm looking for? The effort and the persona out there of someone who has already lived that experience.
Right.
The more you believe something about yourself, and it's going to be something that interacts with something going on in your world, the more you're going to end up automatically defaulting to that defeated or disempowered state.
Yeah.
Having a hard conversation with someone, it might trigger aggression instantly because you're expecting it to not be received and not to be taken well.
Right. Right. Especially if you've been disrespected a lot in the past or people overlook you for things and stuff. I dealt with that a lot with Heather. She has finally come into her own where, she's to the point now where if you don't like me, where you can shove that. I don't really care anymore, right? About that. She's finally gotten to that, but it held her back for so long. Like she wouldn't apply for jobs that were, better paying and more responsibility and things like that. Now she owns it, dude. Now she owns the earth now. I'm pretty sure she has really boosted that confidence by combating what you just said, by accepting that that's what she's doing, but also not expecting, but by accepting responsibility that she can change it. She can turn the dials, right? We have agency here. We always have agency here. And once we know better, we must do better. It's one of our, that should be an axiom. I already have too many axioms, but if I go back in time, I'd make that an axiom. Once one knows better, they must do better or something.
You can get a running list going in the background.
Oh man,
you can never have too many axioms.
By the time I leave the earth, there'll be 2,000 of them. And then you'll have to teach 2,000 of them instead of 135.
Be considerate, all right? Think about it before you put it in it.
And spiritually, when we address this spiritually, we actually combat the things you said because we say, nope, I'm in line. I am in alignment with what is. I am in alignment with reality. I am going to dispel the illusions. I don't care where they come from, right? They come from here. But I'm going to clean the lens and see things as they are. Spiritually, we don't seek to be just an NPC in what's happening around the world. We are participants. We work hand in hand with creation. That's the mindset that we have spiritually, and that's how we use to kind of combat those things that you said. Words by themselves are just words. Words do have power, right? We know this, but only if we accept words, only if we agree to what someone else is saying or what we're saying to ourselves. Once we start to consciously recognize them, right? That's what this whole work is all about. Because you can repeat, and this goes back to a little bit, and we're going to give a little sneak peek right now about why affirmations don't work the way we want them to, right? Because we can repeat something over and over and over. But if there is no feeling behind it, it just remains a thought, just remains this. It does not reach that level where change actually occurs. So I'm going to propose this to you, Michael. Emotion is what moves faith into reality. This is where we actually start to mix the things together to create that alchemy. Emotions are one of the most important ingredients here, right? Because
Yeah.
emotion gives our faith depth.
Yeah. I mean, when it comes to our faith and the things that have defined these beliefs within us, especially the negative ones, it comes from highly traumatic events, 9 out of 10, or what we perceive as traumatic. It may not be something crazy like I was beaten, but it could be just a simple moment where you felt helpless and it was ingrained on you. The way I like to think of it is like think of a paintbrush stroke. Now
Mm-hmm.
imagine when you're doing an affirmation, this is just what you're doing for your daily practice. I am safe. There's not much that emotion there. So that
Mm-hmm.
paintbrush is very lightly touching the paper as it makes that streak, as it builds that neural pathway. But in that moment where you felt helpless, where you didn't feel safe, that was pouring the paint on the page.
Mm, yeah. Yeah, I like that. That's very, very much how it is. Emotions accelerate imprinting, good or bad, right? They just do. They do. That's the power behind things. There's an author and speaker named Greg Braden he's written a ton of books. He teaches a method of prayer that incorporates emotions. He says, pray with emotion, and that makes things more powerful. And I agree, simply because I know that, like you just said, emotions accelerate imprinting, the bad stuff, but the good stuff too. It
That's
moves
why
ideas.
action's so important.
It's why action's so important. It moves us from ideal to experience. But this is also why fear is so effective, right? Fear isn't just a thought. We don't think about fear, Michael. When we get scared, what happens?
It's in our bodies.
It's a
We feel it
full,
viscerally.
oh my God, a full body experience, right? Because it's very charged. Emotions are energy. So the same mechanism that reinforces fear can reinforce anything else, and does. But it requires more than repetition. It requires presence. It requires us to be brave enough to feel. It requires us, as you said, to actually engage with what we're reinforcing. The action.
Well, I mean, the important thing with action, it does two things. So, say it's you feel like you're unsuccessful. You need to put yourself into situations where you're going to start being able to, one, feel successful, but do things that genuinely to you are considered successful. And that's
Mm-hmm.
going to take a lot of you losing too.
Yeah.
So it helps you build that resilience because you can stop and be like, this isn't like the past. This was a lesson. This was not a failure.
Right.
But then you get that success. You hit that moment. You get that sale.
Mm-hmm.
And you feel this rush of empowerment of, I can do this. And that is the change. That is the emotional charge that really builds these networks
Right.
effectively. Instead of the
Yeah.
10,000 micro brushstrokes that it takes, this is a single moment that can completely reverse engineer that system.
Yeah. Right. Because you can't keep thinking one thing, but feeling another, and then acting in contradiction to either of those things, and expect yourself to be in alignment, and expect yourself to resonate the things that you want to see change, either within or without. Mixed signals do not work very well against a closed off system that requires cooperation from each other, right?
Exactly.
Because
An
it's just
important question.
yeah.
When faith does not align with reality. I mean, even say you're doing a good job at work, you feel like you're not doing a good job, and someone gives you a compliment and you brush it off, you feel insecure, you get triggered because it goes against your belief system. When
Right.
faith does not align with reality, how do you reconcile that?
By not having faith in anything outside of yourself other than a higher power. I am a big proponent of having faith in something more powerful, higher power than us. And I'm really not going to get into what you should do. That's up to you. It could be God, it could be Odin, it could be the Force, it could be whatever you want it to be. I don't really care about that part. But it is important for you to connect to something higher. I don't put faith in things that people can take away from me, Michael. Let me give you an example. compliments. People can compliment me, but they can take that back, right? I don't put my faith in titles. People can give me titles, but they can take those away. I don't put my faith in anything that can be taken from me. I put my faith in things that only I can give away, right? Does that make sense?
No, I love that. I think that
Right.
is so
So
beautiful. It's the internal locus of control, right?
yes, because ultimately it's my responsibility. It's my responsibility to be the best me that I can be, right? And it's up to
And
me.
to validate you're doing it.
Exactly. And I don't need anybody else's validation. That doesn't mean I don't need people. Of course I need people. I love people, but I don't need them for that thing, right? Because people come, people go. Think of it this way. Anything that somebody can give you is also something they can take away when they don't like you anymore. So I don't put my faith in something that is as fragile as people liking me or disliking me or agreeing with me or not agreeing with me type of thing. So it's all in here, right? I am the captain of this ship, and I don't really give a damn what people think. And then people will always say, well, Justin, how do you get there? How do you get there? By not giving a shit for a long time. I'm just not born that way. But seriously, by holding on to the things that I'm in charge of, and that's me. I'm not in charge of you. I'm not in charge of any of you out there. I really am in charge of me, right? And I don't give that up to anybody. But I also don't put my faith in things that are very fleeting and very flighty. And, you know, do I enjoy when people compliment me? Of course. Of course I do. But I don't allow that to become a cog in the machine, right? Because if that cog breaks, then what happens? Then my machine stops working. I need to build my machine with things that only I can take away or give away. This is why integrity is so important, Michael. Now, people have lots of different ideas of what integrity is. But integrity is just simply wholeness. And that wholeness happens when we are internally consistent. Not what we say, but what we reinforce across all parts of ourselves, even the shadow. Don't leave the shadow out of this. Thoughts, feelings, actions, because when those are in conflict, everything becomes unstable, right? And where most of us get messed up is when we try to change one layer of ourselves while leaving the other ones untouched. That just creates fragmentation. I know we're trying to focus on one thing, but we can't ever focus on one part of ourselves. We have to try to holistically move our being when we do things, right?
I think a good way to articulate this is just to look at it like this. What value, what virtue are you trying to instill in yourself? What belief are you trying to program? Mm-hmm. And then ask yourself, what normal defense mechanisms come online in the moments where this needs to come through the most? If you don't look at the parts that work against what this thing you're trying to integrate is, then those parts will sabotage you every time. You must be consciously aware of all your mechanisms that interchange with each other. Because again, if you're someone who deals with feeling like you're insecure or you don't know how to talk to people or you struggle with being a strong presence, going to make a sale is going to feel intimidating as hell. And you can tell yourself, I'm going to be a salesperson. I'm not going to deal with people rejecting me. I'm not worried about that. And then you get into it, and all of a sudden all these other parts kick online that are telling you all these horrible things about yourself. Mm-hmm. You're going to fall apart. You're not going to succeed.
I might just chuckle in their face. Be like, wow.
Mr. Inner Locus of Control.
I just, and it gets me in trouble with people because people say, well, then that means you don't care about anything or anyone. Of course I care. I'm one of the most loving people on this planet. I love people. I care about people. But I am not going to hand over. I'm not going to hand over control of my emotional state, my mental state, my physical state, my spiritual state to any other person who's imperfect like me, who's trying to grow too, who's trying to do these things, right? But but again, I also only would give that trust to the kingdom here, to a higher power. And again, I don't care which higher power it is. But we all should have one. I don't, not trying to upset the atheist out there, but life is easier when you have something greater than you to trust in, because sometimes our lives get so crazy, Michael, that it's that we, if we have nothing to fall back on, then we almost feel lost and gone. And I'm not, preaching any one system is better than the other. You have to figure that out. That's your job, not my job to tell you what's best. Your job to figure that out. Do you have any closing thoughts for today's show?
So first off, I want to bring up the concept of cognitive dissonance because this is so ingrained in what we're talking about. Cognitive dissonance is when there is a strict divide between what you know and what you feel. A great example is smoking. You know it's bad and you do it anyway.
It feels
and
so
you
good.
feel this confliction that magnifies the addiction.
Yeah.
But when it comes to working on yourself, the goal isn't to have these major shifts. Everything is about incremental growth. Give yourself an honest evaluation. Where do I want to change my life? Where do I need to redirect? Then after you figure out what that is, dissect what parts about you would need to change. How would those parts show up when things got hard? That way you can be prepared when they do. And above all, the goal isn't the top of the mountain. Don't ask yourself if you struggle with insecurity and talking to people. Don't make sales your first step. Make your first step something small, like having conversations with people you don't normally do. You know where you're at better than anyone. So pick manageable steps to start training these new beliefs, to start processing out the old, to start building faith in yourself that is empowered instead of something that's just going to exacerbate the beliefs you already have.
Well said. That brings us right into our exercise. Exercise today, we're going to start taking control of what we have faith in, right? The things that we allow ourselves to agree deeply with. The first step is define. Choose one outcome that you want to see. Not vague, nothing vague. I want you to be very precise with this. Something you specifically can recognize, whether it moves or doesn't, right? Allow clarity to give direction, because without it, our being has nothing to stabilize or organize around. Step 2, I want you to feel it. Do not push past this part quickly. That's usually what gets us in trouble, when we don't sit with ourselves long enough and sit with our feelings and try to experience things. We are creatures of experience. We must integrate, so we have to feel it. And I want you to try to generate an emotional state of already having this thing, whatever it was that you wanted to, whatever outcome you were looking for. But don't cheat code it. Don't just let yourself be excited about it. But I want you to have a grounded emotional feeling of it being in your normal day to day, right? For example, we get a new toy, right? We get a new thing, we get an Xbox or something, and we're super excited, right? I mean, the day one is awesome. We're setting it up and everything. Day 35, it has become a normal part of our life, right? So I want you to skip past the easy feelings about this thing and go to the point where you have a grounded emotional state of this being a normal thing in your life, because that's what's going to give depth. That's going to take it from the surface down deep into us. Now, the emotion should also match the reality, not the anticipation. Okay? It's very important. Step 3, we're going to try and visualize. See it in detail, not as something that's a distant possibility, but something that you are already living with in your life. See how your environment has moved around it. See how your actions have changed. See how your interactions have shifted one way or the other. The more you allow this to become familiar with inside of you, the easier it is for you to accept it wholly, your whole being. Step 4 is you're going to repeat this. Reinforce it consistently, right? Don't be really intense with it for a few days and then just say, okay, that was it. Be consistent over time. Repetition is what moves us from effort into acceptance. Remember, you have to get the mind on board, the body on board, the heart on board, the soul on board. You have to get everybody on board for this to work, right? This is how you create resonance. We are building a resonance machine right now today by doing this exercise. Each time you return to it, you are gathering what you need around you, and you're strengthening this new pattern. Step 5 is to embody it. Walk around like it is all yours. It's always yours. It's always been there. It's a normal part of your life. You need to be in alignment with it. Even in the tiny ways, the small ways, your behavior must reflect what you're reinforcing internally. This is where it becomes real, right? Your thoughts, your feelings, your actions begin to match. Nothing about this is about forcing belief. It's about building consistency, building a discipline until it becomes your natural state. Any comments on the exercise for today?
No, that's beautiful. Just be intentional.
Be intentional. And do it. Just do it. Nike is not a sponsor. I wish they were, but just do it. I don't know if I wish they were or not. There's a lot of controversy. Anyways, our affirmations for today. I create through alignment with truth. I impress my mind with intention and clarity. My emotions support my highest reality. I act in coherence with my purpose. I am aligned with the light. Journal prompts. What am I consistently reinforcing in my life? Don't judge it, just write it down and then explore that, right? Where do my thoughts and feelings conflict? What emotions dominate my daily experience? What truth do I want to impress more deeply? And what would full alignment look like for me? So guys, listen, faith is not something that we turn on like a switch. It's something that we're always using. Every thought you repeat, every emotion that you reinforce, every expectation you carry is shaping what you are aligned with. So the question is not, do I have faith? The question is, what am I placing my faith in? That's ultimately the most important question today. Because whatever you repeat becomes familiar. Whatever you feel becomes reinforced. And whatever you accept becomes your reality. Not what you hope for, not what you wish for, not what you want, but what you live from, where everything comes from. So pay attention. Notice what you default to under pressure. When things are uncertain, in silence even. That is your real faith. And once you see it clearly, you, my friend, can change it. Because creation is not random. It is responsive. And it's always responding to what is inside of you. We hope you guys enjoyed the show today. Please make sure you check out all of our socials, Michael, the TikToks, the YouTubes, the Facebooks, the Instagrams. We always forget Instagram. The Instagrams, the Spotify's. If you're listening on Apple or the other 100 places you can get this show, we appreciate it. If you're not subscribed to any of those places, please subscribe. It helps us out. Share this content. I promise you it'll help somebody that you know. I promise, at least one person. That's kind of our goal every day, right, Michael, is to help one person.
Yep. Exactly. If we can make a change in one person's life, it was all worth it.
It is. We love you guys so much. Thank you so much for joining us. With love and gratitude, ad lucem.
Ad lucem.